Good morning, everyone. Let me introduce first the presenters of this InfoShare today. So there is Leticia Delvaux from Poznań Supercomputing and Networking Center in Poland, who is the Work Package 6 Task 3 leader. And she's also the personal service manager in the JANT project. And I'm Szymon Trocha, also from PSNC. And I'm working in the JANT project as the PMP service manager, but also as part of the personal international collaboration. I'm also coordinating the documentation and training activities for personal. Okay, I'm trying to, yeah. So we gathered today to talk about the latest Personal 5.0 release, as the new version of the software has been in development for quite some time already, with the last beta version, which was released last summer. So it means almost a year ago. And given the large scope of the changes introduced between 4.0 and 5.0 version, the whole personal development team decided to schedule the InfoShare to discuss the update and give the users and people also willing to use Personal in future maybe a chance to learn more about the coming release and also give the possibility to ask questions. In fact, because we are together working in the international collaboration project, there will be a second talk this afternoon, which will be run by our colleagues from ESNet, in fact, for the users in another time zone. But in the terms of the content, it will be similar to this one. So the news is that Personal 5.0 is targeted for the release on April 17. So we are almost precisely a year from the beta release. And you can also see the coincidence. We started in January the GN5 project, and we also have the Personal 5 release. So it was a coincidence. So let's have a look on what we will cover today in our InfoShare. So in this talk, we will introduce the main change in the 5.0 release that is mainly related to the archival data storage, which will completely change the architecture used in 4.0. And we will also highlight the main benefits behind this new version, so why we decided to change it. Because many of you are already the users of Personal, either in their own deployments of just Personal instances, but you may also be part of the PMP service, which we deploy in JANT area. You may also wonder what will happen to your old data, which is already collected in your archives, either in the local archives related to the toolkit or to the central archives you may have for your own organization. So we will provide information about the different scenarios which may be applied to your situation, and also ways on how to proceed with the data collected from the historical measurements, and also those which will be collected in future measurements. We will also mention a few other important changes coming with 5.0, and also suggest, because there is still a little bit of time between now and when the release is really issued, so we will also suggest some possible actions for the Personal users that they can do until the release is really done. Because this is also useful for all the current participants of different personal services. And we will finish our info share with presenting some additional information on future work from the development team, which is going to happen this year. And there will also be a piece of a live presentation of the graphical interface with Grafana, which is in fact presenting the data collected with the new architecture. So from looking from the historical perspective, the last major release was almost 6 years ago in 2017. And this was the major change, in fact, because at that time we introduced pscheduler. You may remember that pscheduler replaced BWCTL, and this was the new component which is currently fully responsible for managing the execution of tasks in Personar. It's able to use different tools. It has the plugins architecture, and is also able to use different type of archives so that you can use different possibilities to archive your measurement data. 4.0 also introduced CentOS 7 support as a new operating system. Of course, over these years between 2017 and now, there were a couple of minor releases where we introduced other smaller features or fixes, but there wasn't any big bang or a big change in the architecture. But over all these years, the development team worked hardly, in fact, in the background to introduce the new major change and release 5.0 with the first beta version last year. So it was published in May 2022. And in fact, its largest change was the replacement of the default SMOD archive, which stores the measurement data. And this will become the new architecture of 5.0. So let's have a quick look at this SMOD old component. Some of you may recognize that SMOD is a system for collecting, for storing large sets of time series data, and it was originally developed by ESNet, originally for their own needs to store some SNMP data, then other kinds of data used internally for ESNet monitoring and data storage. At some point also took by the Personar project, and the project has begun to use it to store the time series of network measurements from the Personar system. And in fact, so far, up to this time, it was used by the majority of the Personar users using Personar either in the toolkit mode, so as a standalone instance, but also in a so-called, let's say, central archive mode, where you have a dedicated measurement archive and you store the data from multiple instances of Personar. SMOD uses a hybrid model for storing the data. That means there are in fact two databases, two components, where time series data, for instance, such as interface counters, the test results, and similar data to that is stored to the Cassandra database, which saves the raw data and also creates summarization. But for instance, in contrary to other time series databases, like you may recognize the well-known RRD files, where you also store the data and have summarizations, Cassandra never discards the data through summarization, so it's always available. There's always another piece of SMOD in addition to Cassandra, so the PostgreSQL database, where the metadata is stored. Metadata means data like source, destination, test parameters, all the stuff which is describing the measurements and the test details. So this is, for instance, allowing us to used all the functionality of SQL queries to get all this data quickly and use the, let's say, full expressiveness of the SQL commands to get this data. So through the interface, through the REST interface, which was developed to Esmond, the system, the users were able to query, retrieve, or write the data to Esmond. And over time, also the development team provided some libraries of Perl or Python, and also additional scripts to make all this data available and to make the retrieval easier. So that's what Esmond looks like. But working over all these years and looking at what's there and how the architecture looks like, the development team decided at some point to replace Esmond. Why did it happen, in fact? So there were a couple of reasons behind that. First, over the last years, there were many good open source solutions for time series storage. You may probably recognize names like Elasticsearch, OpenSearch, MongoDB, InfluxDB, etc. So tons of such solutions. And these platforms allowed for easy integration with other visualization platforms and tools like Kibana, Grafana, OpenSearch dashboards, and many others. It also provided rich query languages to easily get the data. And also comparing to really old Esmond implementation, it usually offers better support for things like backups and scaling. You can, when deploying such solutions, you can choose between deployments in your own cloud, for instance. You can put it on the on-premise instances. You can deploy it on the instances of clouds in major cloud providers, Amazon, Google, etc. They also often offers the clustering functionalities, for instance, when you want to have better performance or increase size of the data storage. So these functions, in fact, introduce lots of flexibility to the solutions. Esmond was often also questioned about the stability. If you are a user of PevSonar of the current version, and we look at the PevSonar users list and the issues reported by user, in fact, issues related to Esmond, both Cassandra and PostgreSQL, and errors related to that were one of the most popular issues reported on the users mailing list. So, and although used in PevSonar, the Esmond somehow become not developed anymore by the original designers, also unsupported over time, because, well, that was an old solution. So because it was already included in the PevSonar architecture, it also required the PevSonar team to continue putting efforts into it, because it was a dedicated solution. This solution had dedicated old libraries and some custom code. So we still needed to maintain that, knowing that it is required for the current release. So in fact, from this perspective and the development team efforts, replacing Esmond would mean getting rid of most of these issues. Finally, related to the different tools which are available somewhere in the community, we observe that the users of time series database, the users of PevSonar over the past years took advantage of these new options for data storage and visualization. So as an example, they used some common platforms gathering data from different data sources like WLCG, using also this new functionality of pscheduler to be able to archive with other types of archivers to new data storage types. And some of the other users also developed own tools like kind of umbrella tools like NetSage or Stardust, again, to collect data from different places, but also trying to analyze data, maybe using some AI things, etc. So, so all these things led us to the decision that we really need to replace Esmond, and we decided to go with the new solution. Taking all these arguments into account, the team decided to replace the default archive where all the test results, all the measurements are stored, with OpenSearch. And with 5.0, OpenSearch will be a default archive in all types of the personal bundles. So what is OpenSearch? OpenSearch is community-built, open source search and analytics suite. It includes the data store and the search engine, but also a visualization as a user interface, which allows people not only to visualize the data, but also to use different types of plugins, to write their own plugins, in fact, to tailor the user requirements and to provide some specific visualizations related to the requirements of specific users. What's important is that OpenSearch is a fork from Elasticsearch, and OpenSearch dashboard, which is a visualization piece, is derived from Kibana. The reason also for us to choose that was that OpenSearch has much more friendly licensing schema, which is currently based on Apache License 2.0. And this license allows us to use, modify, extend, and also offer just OpenSearch as part of the product and the services. So it's very flexible, and it was very convenient for us to use it. It's also worth mentioning that because OpenSearch is a fork of Elasticsearch, it maintains the compatibility with it. So it's also important for those users who have some existing installations, and this should not have major impact on that. So let's have a look how these pieces fit together. And let me explain all the building blocks here. For those of you who are maybe longer with Pevsonar, you probably remember the a little bit complicated architecture diagram with all the building blocks of Pevsonar. This is just a part of it. Let's say a simplified version where we have only the archiving part. So at the bottom of this picture, the green part is pscheduler, the well-known part introduced at 4.0. And it's already pictured with the HTTP archiver and the tools plugin. I mentioned before that we have different tools. We have a plugin architecture where you can write even your own plugin to add different tools. And it's just the HTTP archiver here, which is used in this particular case, but you can also have RabbitMQ, you can also have Kafka archivers, and a few others which are introduced in 5.0, and they will be shown later. So it's the pscheduler block. Then we have the new components which are placed in the archiving block. So first, it contains a kind of Logstash pipeline, and the Logstash is capable of accepting the pscheduler results through the HTTP connection, and in fact, outputting them to the OpenSearch part. Logstash is important part of this because it also allows us to enrich data with some metadata. The metadata can come from different sources. It could be either lookup service, for instance. It could be some own users database. all these things which are describing the measurements. And it also allows us to format the data for the storage into OpenSearch. Of course, there is then the OpenSearch part that stores the data. In the archiving part, you may see this also little block, which is called Elmont. This is the new component, which in fact converts the Esmond queries to the queries understood by OpenSearch. So this is done because thanks to this piece of software, the current tools used for visualization, like Madash, the GraphSync toolkit, the Traceroute viewer, will be able to query the new archive of OpenSearch about the data. So this is a kind of enabling the old visualization tools still used to be able to get to the data in OpenSearch. In the visualization block, you may also notice the two new blocks, OpenSearch dashboards and Grafana. So I said that OpenSearch dashboard is a fork of Kibana in terms of the visualization. And this is a default visualization tool for OpenSearch. And it also serves as a user interface for many of the plugins which are available for OpenSearch. So it's a default for OpenSearch. But as mentioned before, and one of the reasons we went from Esmond to the new types of data storage and visualizations is because people are more and more commonly used new tools, new open source tools. So Grafana is a great example of these tools used by different networks and users to visualize data. And this is compatible. This can be used to get the data from OpenSearch. It has the plugin for OpenSearch. And in a few minutes, you will also see an example of such visualization done in Grafana, and in a live demo, you will be able to see that this connection and the availability of data through OpenSearch directly to these tools really works. And we have also some additional features and plugins to make it a little bit similar to what you can experience with Madash. So I will pass the talk now to Leticia, who will continue with the other parts of this talk. Leticia, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Shimon, for presenting all the reason why we upgrade and why we change to the partner backend. But you may wonder now, what are the benefits of upgrading, and should you do it or should you not do it? So the main benefits is that OpenSearch enables some new capabilities. It's a very, as Shimon presented, a very more modern database than the one we had before, Esmond. And it allows for new visualization possibilities. If we use Grafana, we can use all the dashboard and plugin that exists for Grafana, but we can also develop new ones. And I will show you a new panel that has been developed to present personal data in Grafana. OpenSearch also allows for different types of query, like SQL query. So it's really a better backend that we will put to some new uses, and that will also enable you to access the personal data in a very different way. Another addition for this 5.0 version is support of Ubuntu 20. We were a bit behind with the different operating system support. we are catching up on that, and one new addition is Ubuntu 20, and there are more to come later. We have some new, smaller convenience features that are added in this new version 5. So in psconfig, if you remember using it on the CLI, you had to pass a flag that's called configure archives. This one now is the default because it's the most common usage. We also ship with the test point a new JSON service that's useful to get information, resource information from the Persona host that you're working with. We have some toolkit improvement with, for example, the pscheduler plot command that's now integrated into toolkit UI. Some other things like new pscheduler plugins to test at layer 2, to test Wi-Fi, to test pscheduler itself. New tools that come within these plugins as well. So the pscheduler architecture is made of different types of plugins, the test, the tools, the archives. For example, in the archive plugin, you can now also send your Persona data into PostgreSQL if you want, or just in a TCP connection. So there are many different features that have been added. The main one and the main change being this backend change, and to showcase that and to show you exactly, to show you rather an example of what you will be able to have in the near future, not directly now with Persona, but with Persona 5.0, but in a future release 5.1, for example, we will be able to build dashboards like this one. So this is just an example here. This is a visualization of packet loss, for example, for a few testing hosts that we have here, and over time. So this is a timeline. We have here other kind of visualization for packet loss and for throughput, with colors changing when thresholds are not reached, so that you can visualize quickly. And the new Grafana plugin that YesNet has developed, or Persona, the Persona collaboration has developed, that renders Persona data in a MatDash similar way, so in a matrix-like format, where when you hover on each square in the matrix, you can see that the packet loss or the throughput between two different Persona nodes. And like in the current MatDash, if you click on this link, then you get access to more detailed data and to the historical data that Persona collects and stores now in OpenSearch. So you have throughput and latency data, packet loss, TCP retransmit, jitter information. You can visualize trace route hop count changes as well. So these are all simple visualization that you can have with Grafana. You can build your own dashboard, and this is really the big new change and positive new change in this is that you can easily integrate Persona data with other kind of data, other monitoring data that you may already have in your Persona, in your Grafana setup. And to show you how it works for in the details, the configuration. If you go to the Grafana configuration here, you see that we use the regular OpenSearch data source plugin that is set up to query just the regular, the normal Persona archive that is now based on OpenSearch. So even though Persona 5.0 will not bring those Grafana dashboards right away, if you want to develop your own Grafana dashboards once you have installed, deployed Persona 5.0, you will be able to do so by yourself. So let's go back to the presentation. So these are the benefits that you have for upgrading and looking forward to 5.1 and the next versions. So you will probably have some questions as well about the upgrade and maybe some specific questions as to what will happen to your old Persona data. And this will depend. This will depend on your deployment, your current deployment in your network, and the way that you use Persona. If you're using TestPoint, then the good news is that you can auto-upgrade the test points. Those will be unaffected as they don't store data. Nothing will happen there. If you use a toolkit, a Persona toolkit, this is different because the Persona toolkit installs a local database, Esmond, and this needs to be changed. If you use auto-update and you have a Persona toolkit running 4.4, once we reach the 17th of April and the new packages are available, your Persona toolkit will be automatically upgraded and your data will not be migrated. A new OpenSearch instance will replace the Esmond instance that will previously exist on your Persona machine, but the new OpenSearch will have no data to start with. So you will need to run the test again and wait for the results to have data being stored in your OpenSearch and being able to visualize. If you use TestPoint, chances are though that you have a central management or some standalone Esmond instance, and this one will not be directly upgraded to OpenSearch, and the upgraded TestPoint will continue to send data to this central management. So this can continue existing as well. And you might slowly then come up with a new replacement with a new central archive. So you're going probably to ask, if you're running a toolkit, why aren't we migrating your data to OpenSearch, from Esmond to OpenSearch? As Shimon explained, Esmond is existing for quite some time. It was not very well maintained in these last years, with only security fixes being corrected. And the backend that Esmond was using, mainly Cassandra, was a very old version, and it was not straightforward to extract data from Esmond and to ingest it into OpenSearch anew to make it available. It's not to say that it's impossible, but we decided that with the development effort that we have in the Persona collaboration, it was better spent in making sure that the Persona 5.0 was stable and that the new functionality that we'll be offering in the future would be available as soon as possible, and that we would maintain your Persona experience across the release. It's also because we realized that not all Persona users are interested in history of Persona measurements. Some are, but not all. So it was also not an easy decision from our side, but that's what we decided to do. We will still provide instruction for keeping your SMON data. So when you upgrade a toolkit, SMON will be turned off, but the data will not be erased and removed from the toolkit. So you can copy this data to another Persona instance or a standalone SMON and continue accessing it from there if you want to keep access to your historical Persona data. If that is one way of doing it that might interest you, or that you may feel it's the best for you, we recommend you to disable auto updates in the coming days so that your toolkit is not directly upgraded to 5.0, and that you can choose your own way of doing the upgrade at your own pace. So if you have a central SMON instance, what will happen? So a Persona central archive the one we have in the PMP service, for example, in the GN project. These packages, this installation will not be automatically upgraded, so they will stay with the current version that they have now. So that means that all the Persona test points or toolkits that send data to it will continue to be able to send data to it. Your Mad Dash and your other visualization will be able to continue read data from SMON and display it. And what you can do preparing for your migration to 5.0 is deploy a second central archive based on 5.0, and so that will run OpenSearch. And by having both archive definition in your psconfig file, your test point will be able to send data to both the old SMON archive and the new OpenSearch archive. And so with time, you can build up history in your new OpenSearch archive. And once you're happy with the history that you've built up in your new OpenSearch archive, then you can migrate your visualization from using SMON to using OpenSearch, or even deploy two different set of Mad Dash grids, or use two different set of visualization, one that will keep showing you the historical data stored in SMON, then one that will show you the new data stored in OpenSearch. So this is a way of managing the upgrade to 5.0 for a central SMON instance. There are some other changes coming with 5.0. There is a change in the pscheduler limits. So that's a piece of configuration of pscheduler that allows users to restrict who and how your Persona deployment can be used by third party, by other members of the Persona community. So as you know, once you deploy your Persona instance, any other Persona users around the world can use it, but sometimes some some tests are too intrusive, mostly the throughput tests, and you don't want anyone to run any throughput tests. So this is why this scheduler limits setup exists. For example, by default, it restricts UDP throughput testing. If you haven't touched this file, if it's still the default configuration that was shipping with Persona 4.4, then that's fine. Upgrading to 5.0 will just change this file, and you will have the new one, and all will continue to work as you previously had. If you have adapted this scheduler limits file to your own needs, then you will need to do manually an update of it as well. We're providing you some information and a script to check on that. And this is in the GitHub link that it is here on this slide. Another change with 5.0, we decided to not build the ISO image anymore. Installing from an ISO image is something that is probably less common these days, with a lot of users doing deployment by themselves with automated solution like Ansible or others, or even doing installation containers. And on our side, from the development perspective, there was also quite a few changes in the way that ISO images needed to be built. And we also decided that spending too much time on this part of the development was not worth it. And so we will not provide ISO image for 5.0. Still, all the RPM and Debian packages that we are currently providing will be available as Debian and RPM packages in the future as well. So you will be able to install on the same set of OS. It's just that you will use Yum or you will use APT instead of using the ISO image. There are some packaging change that comes along with this change in the backend. So the Persona Central Management, if you know all the different Persona bundles of package that we provide, Persona Central Management is the one that included SMOND and MapDash. As we don't provide an upgraded version of SMOND, as we discontinue usage of SMOND, we also decided to drop this central management bundle. There is now a Persona archive package that will install OpenSearch and Logstash. And if you want a setup similar to the Persona Central Management, where we had both the backend and the front end, then you will need to just install two packages, which are the Persona Archive and MapDash. And there is also now an optional Persona Dashboard package. So this one installs the OpenSearch dashboard. So this is the equivalent of Kibana for OpenSearch. We recommend to install this set of dashboards only if you want to go by yourself into the Persona data and research and extract very detailed information out of it. If you just want regular visualization, that it's better to keep on using the current MapDash and the current graphs that we provide, or start using a new Grafana deployment on your own. This Kibana dashboard is really if you want to go deep into the Persona data. So a few words about what you can do between now and April 17th to wait on Persona 5.0 to be ready to be available for you. You can check your pscheduler limits file with the script that we provide and see if you will need to do manual changes or not. Review the data strategy that I just presented and how you want to upgrade to 5.0 and depending on your current deployment scenario, you will probably be interested in one of the solutions that I described. We welcome you also to install and test the latest beta packages. So the first beta was released last year, middle of last year, during the summer of last year. But in meanwhile, and up until a few days ago, we updated this beta and new beta packages are available. So please test it if you have time and resources to do it. Remember that we're here to help, so that's why we're doing this info share today. We're also available on the Persona user list, on some Giant project user list as well, on the PMP PMP service mailing list as well. So get in touch with us if you have questions about your best way to upgrade. And something new as well that we just finished a few days ago, there is a new lookup service UI that you're welcome to check, that is also based on Grafana, and that will show you all the information about the different all the Persona public instances that exist around the world. And this is at the URL here, stats.persona.net. Also, what's on our roadmap and what's after 5.0, and what are the good things that will come. So as we say, the current or the initial OS support for Persona 5.0 will be CentOS 7, as we are supporting now, the Ubuntu 18 and Ubuntu 20. Ubuntu 18, we're still supporting it now, but it's coming end of life by the vendor, by Canonical. We also support Debian 10. So on top of these 4 operating systems, in the coming months, we'll be providing also support for Alma 8 and Alma 9, Ubuntu 22 and Debian 11. So stay tuned on our communication so that you know when these are available. And then after, so working for Persona 5.1 and beyond, we will come with new Grafana-based visualization instead of map dashing the current graph that we have. So that will provide you with dashboard like the one that I showed you in the, previously in this talk. We're working also on a new hyper-free version, a threaded one, so that will bridge the gap and make with hyper-2 and make hyper-3 behave in a more similar way to hyper-2. We are also coming with a threaded version of PostStream. So PostStream is the streaming latency measurements based on the O121 protocol. There are some changes in psconfig and a new also Persona web admin it's still in the early design phase, but that we'll be working on. So in summary, to conclude this talk and take your question after that, April 17th, The toolkit data will not be migrated to OpenSearch, but there are different ways around that. If you run the centralized Monado archive, we're happy to discuss with you and to assist you with designing an upgrade plan and make sure that you are happy with how your Persona deployment can continue to be used. Check your pscheduler limits, check the new OS support we will provide it, and yeah, again, get in touch if you need to. So that's it. If you have any questions, Shimon and myself are happy to take them. I haven't looked at the chat. Shimon, maybe do you know if there are some?
Yeah, we had 2 questions from Tim in the meantime. The first one was related to the Grafana visualization part you showed, whether this integration is already available. So this was just I answered, this was just a presentation of features, and as you mentioned, we'll be working on that. The Grafana Madash-like plugin is already there, but in terms of automatic configuration of the data retrieval, it's not yet there. So you just need to use your own instance of Grafana and install and configure the plugins. But that seems to be very straightforward. We will anyway provide some guidelines over time on how to do that in the meantime.
Yeah, I think it would ease the pain of some other aspects of going to 5.0 if these very nice tools that you're showing were ones that we could get hold of and start adapting and running ourselves. I think that would be very helpful. It's like you're dangling them in front of us saying, look, you can have this, but then saying, actually, no, you can't.
No, well, if you're comfortable working with Grafana and developing or setting up your own Grafana dashboards, then all that is shown here is available. It's not shipped directly as Persona packages, as Persona installation. And if you install just OpenSearch or Mapdash, you will not have this. But all both the data source plugin that is used in this demo is the standard Grafana OpenSearch data source plugin. And these visualization here are regular Grafana visualization that you just need to set up in some specific way to access the Persona data.
Yeah, so what I would encourage you to do is, the 5.0 release, that's fine, that's all clear, that's production. This clearly is coming soon and being worked on. Maybe have another call soon after the release of 5.0 focused on, if you're interested in this, maybe just a sort of a drop-in session where people can come and talk to you about this, where they can get it, how they configure it. Very clearly not official part of the 5.0 release, but something that will allow us to understand what you've done and how to apply this to our own archives to have those views. I think that would be really useful as a sort of community thing to do, even though it's made clearly not part of 5.0.
So here you see it's just a regular table visualization for Grafana. And you query it you query OpenSearch, so that's a Lucene query. What you need to know is, the keywords and how the Persona data is labeled inside OpenSearch. But apart from this information, all is available in a regular Grafana instance.
Yeah, this idea, your idea, team, maybe, it's very useful. But in any case, we are there available through the mailing list or just chats. And
we can follow
as
up on the
Leticia said,
well,
there may be different scenarios depending on the environments of the users. So,
No, but I think, well, I'm trying to compliment you on saying these views are really nice, but the frustrating bit is then you're saying, oh, and they'll be available in 5.1. So I'm saying, let's get hold of them now and start playing with them now and learn from them unofficially, not, well, it's kind of official in that you're helping us and you're the Persona team, but I think to be able to get some experience with this now would be very useful, since it's clearly possible.
And in a way, they are actually available now. It's just that the nice interface with the dashboards already set up isn't, if I
Yes,
understand
yeah.
correctly. So, you know, that's a much more positive spin than is not available now.
Exactly. Yeah.
Anyway, I don't want to turn this meeting into that discussion.
Yeah.
The other question is, as we've discussed before, we have kind of 3 different main Perf-Sonar bases in the UK. There's the Grid PP people who are part of WLCG, and we can have discussions with them in their regular weekly meetings about their strategy and what they do. And I think some of them are on the call. But there's also then the WLCG data is also archived in the US going back 5 years. So that may provide another way of getting the historic views. The more interesting one for us, aside from the second case, which is our own measurement points, is there is a community that has about 20 points deployed with a central archive. And I'm wondering, to provide the historical view from what you've said, is it possible to keep the current Esmond archiving going and also to open search so that they will, say, for the next 6 or 12 months, be able to see the old central Esmond archive while also having on a separate VM or whatever, an open search archive. So they'd be able to see up to 6 to 12 months back continuously on the old archive, and then in 6 or 12 months turn that off and just run with open search. Is that a possible sort of rollover scenario, or did I misunderstand what you said?
So yeah, you can configure your deployment to send your personal measurement data to both the old archive and a new one that you will deploy. Switch your visualization front end from the old one to the new one, to the new archive, once you're satisfied with the history that you've built up in the new archive. And even
So with the, I'm sorry.
Yeah, even if you do that, you can also keep an old visualization front end that will stay with the old Esmond archive if you want to keep accessing data that you have for many months or many years, if you get the default storage policy. So
the 20 or so measurement points would all be updated to 5.0. They can then still archive to Esmond. Would that Esmond archive then still be running 446, presumably, with Mad Dash looking at that? But at least you would still have the data there and get the continuous view that is desirable by a few people. And then we can have the new one, open search, being archived in parallel. So that's what you're confirming. Yeah, that's good if that's the case. Yeah, I think that's a good workaround or a good rollover approach. That might be something that you make clearer on the rerun tonight, maybe, because I think it's a very positive solution for people that want that kind of thing.
Yes, so I see some other questions in the chat. So Hirotaka Sato asked about what to do as we no longer support ISO image installation. So we still provide the regular RPM and Debian packages. And we have some pages in our documentation that describe the process of installing Perf-Sonar on CentOS on Debian. So you just need to have your CentOS machine or Debian or Ubuntu machine set up as a new machine, and then you configure the Perf-Sonar repository and you install the Perf-Sonar bundle that you want to use. I don't know if there are some questions.
Yeah, actually, the tuning process of the each Perf-Sonar installation, the bundle ISO installation does the whole things for the tuning for the each machine, right? So this you will dropping the ISO installation. So we might be manually tuning all the machines that we have to install each one of these, right? So
So if you install with the bundles, with the individual packages instead of the ISO image, you will have the same functionality as with the ISO image. So all the tuning scripts that are provided with the toolkit and the ISO image that configure your TCP stack on your host, the TCP buffer, all that depending on the speed of your network interface, these scripts will be available to you as well. And you, a regular installation will do the same tuning as a regular ISO image installation. And if you're using some specific instructions that are available from the Faster Data website from ESNet, you can also use the same instructions with 5.0 and with a different installation method rather than the ISO image.
I just dropped a message to the chat yet, how I understood that message too. There, in addition to what was automatically installed in the toolkit, we have a separate package which allows you to run and do this sysctl tuning of your host. What I find behind this question is maybe that needs some second look at the package if that do the correct things for the new OSs.
Yeah, right. So that kind of thing. So the installation from the ISO is kind of pretty straightforward, right? But the installing the package is a little bit the manual tuning or something like that. So so as I'm from Japan, so sometimes we need to support some Asian far South Asia, East Asia region, so that we have to tell them that we should do this thing or that thing. So if there is some kind of post that covers all that kind of information, that will be very helpful. So that is my comment. Yes, for the not high skilled engineer that is in this conference, apart from these we all have in here.
Yeah, well, I hope this answers your question. Is there any other question from the audience?
Okay, if not, you probably know how to find all of us. Just in case you have more questions, you can always drop an email to personal-user@internet2.edu, which is a general community support list. You can also reach us through the Jean channels, either through the dedicated lists or through Slacks. We'll be happy to answer your specific questions, and yeah, we'll be meeting maybe on the next events like that. Yeah, go ahead.
One other question. So when you mentioned Slack, I know obviously from the previous project work I've been on, the Persona Slack, is there an open part of that where users can chat on Slack with developers, or are we expected to go to the list? Slack is quite nice just for interactive chat rather than a barrage of emails, which
it probably is. We don't have a dedicated channel for users. One of the, let's say, disadvantages on top of my head now is that it has a limited number of history kept, while the users mailing list is just the useful source of historical information too. So
it's just a suggestion. A lot of the work
of
we
speed
do,
of
we
answer.
have a lot of discussion in Slack and with other Persona users in different Slack channels that you're not on. I'm just wondering whether that might be something you consider as a means of engaging with the developers to use Slack. Something for you to think about anyway, particularly with the release coming up.
Yeah, you think about that, yeah. At the moment, we recommend you using the main list.
What the fuck is going on?
Any other question? Okay, well, if there are no more questions, I think we covered all the topics that we wanted to cover today. We thank you very much for your participation today. And let's keep in touch, and don't hesitate to reach to us if you have questions or you want some help from ourselves.